Hello and welcome to this episode of the Glasgow Business Gameplan. And this week we're speaking with our friend Wes Beard from Konversable. Wes, welcome to the show.
Hi, Stephen. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. So, Wes, let's just dive straight into it and tell us a bit about yourself and the business.
I guess you could say I didn't come through the sort of typical entrepreneurial path setting up the business. I was typically a very academic kid. Went through the well-defined path of high school into university into the corporate world. Worked in the kind of corporate rat race for about best part of 20 years. And got towards middle age and sort of thought, is this what I want to do for the rest of my life? And decided that wasn't what I wanted to do. And I wanted to have a bit more control over my life and do something where I felt I was adding a lot of value. And at the same time, I was doing an MBA part-time at Strathclyde with a 1-year-old in tow as well, and lots going on at that time. But I was listening to a lot of podcasts as well from the US about entrepreneurship, and one of the podcasts was talking a bit about chatbots. This was back in 2016 when nobody really had heard of chatbots at that time, but I definitely saw a need for it. Certainly in the industry I was in, which was in the automotive industry, and how that could improve lead management and things like that. And long story short, I sat down with a guy who eventually became my business partner. He was a sort of marketing expert, and we ended up deciding to start a company in 2017. And that's been us since, well, we started trading in 2018. That's been us now 6 years. I can't believe how quickly it's gone. But yeah, it's been a journey.
Brilliant. So chatbots and Konversable, tell me, how does it work?
Yeah, so our mission is really to allow businesses to communicate better with their customers online. So we do that through a number of features within our technology. First one is chatbots, as I just alluded to there. Most recently, we've been using some of the advances in AI to incorporate some really kind of highly intelligent chatbot technology. Working with businesses across many different industries with that, including well-known organisations like Edinburgh University, for example. So that's one of the things we do. We also provide website live chat, and also our other kind of big one is WhatsApp Business API. So we allow businesses to embed a GDPR compliant WhatsApp solution, which can be used by the business across their employee base in a secure way to communicate with their customers. And then finally, we have a sort of automated video technology called MediaFlow, which basically is a bit like sort of combining chatbots with video, so allowing businesses to sort of guide customers down different video journeys in an interactive way, and then also allow customers to respond via video at scale. So all of that kind of process is automated, so it can be used for things like automated video customer testimonials or interactive job interviews, things like that. So our sort of fundamental mission really is all about looking at businesses in an industry and thinking, okay, what is the best and most appropriate online chat solution for that business, and then we build that out accordingly.
It's really, really good because, from small businesses up to large businesses, it's a huge resource to not just attract the leads, but then to interact them and take them through the process of their selling process. To having that automated, you're fixing so many so many solutions to problems that you're offering there.
Yeah, exactly. There's a heavy sort of reactive element to our technology in terms of, how do you deal with those people as they're maybe hitting your website, for example. But there's also a very strong marketing element to it as well. So, for example, within our WhatsApp solution, we have a WhatsApp broadcasting feature which allows you to sort of message out, thousands of people if you want via WhatsApp. So you get really high open rates and read rates and things like that. So it's a bit of a blend of both, but we kind of see it as sort of fitting within a funnel as a whole, so you've kind of got your website visitors at the very top, and then you're kind of coming down into that online chat experience a bit further down the funnel. And then if you want to get to that more kind of intimate one-to-one relationship with your customer, that's where WhatsApp comes in. It's a much more personal channel in that sense. So yeah, so it's definitely really a growing area of interest for a lot of businesses. So it's quite an exciting time for us to be in this space.
It sounds like what you're offering there is, because a lot of businesses, when they get an inquiry or a lead or something like that, they almost jump straight to the selling stage. And that's where you can start to really impact the kind of the conversion rates from generating those leads. And it sounds to me like what you're offering now is a way to manage the customer or client through that journey to the point where they're ready to make a decision.
Yeah, that's right. A lot of our bots, for example, and our kind of chatbot technology, a lot of that is about pre-qualifying the customer, and we want to make sure that we've got a way of easily capturing those leads and pass them into the business, so we can either just automatically email them to the client, or they can be integrated into a CRM, for example. But what it allows them to do is really filter out, who are the tire kickers, because there are tire kickers on inquiries on the website from time to time, and who are the genuine leads. And having that kind of interactive journey through the chatbot, you can actually see what types of questions are they asking. You can sort of define them even by the kind of the buttons that they press through the journey, in terms of what's their budget, or when are they looking to change their product, and that kind of stuff. And that can give you a lot of insight into who are those customers that you need to sort of prioritize when it comes to your sales process.
Yeah, when you say chatbot, there's something pops into my head, because I think depending on how you interact with them, will depend on your perception of it. So initially, the word chatbot makes me think, oh God, there's another pop-up I need to click off the screen.
Yes.
If you go back to 2016 when you were talking about it, you go, oh wow, how good's this company that Tanya's up at 10 o'clock at night to answer any queries? I'm not really sure what website I'm describing here, but you get the idea. At the time, wasn't really as
Yeah.
common, but now it's like, just get that off my screen. So, but from a business perspective now, I can definitely see the benefit of it. And is that something that you come up across against quite a bit in your own business development?
Yeah, I think certainly in the early days of our business, as I say, I would talk to probably 100 people, and maybe five would know what chatbot technology was and what it did.
Mm.
And nowadays, I speak to 100 people, and pretty much 100 know what a chatbot is. So things have moved at a phenomenal pace over the last 6 years, and the technology alongside that has advanced. So I'll be the first to admit, our early version of our technology was not the best. It was a very kind of Marmite type experience for people, where some people loved the fact that it was this kind of 24/7 type experience, and it kind of did a job, but it wasn't that sophisticated when it came to that true kind of intelligence. But we're now living in a world where we have these large language models and advanced sort of AI algorithms that are really unlocking that potential for the masses. So this technology was really kind of reserved only for the big kind of FTSE 100 companies that could afford very expensive consultants and AI designers and things like that. Whereas now we're kind of in a world where a lot of that stuff is much more democratized. And with that's given us the ability to kind of be able to open up our product suite a lot more, so and make that much more effective. So for example, with University of Edinburgh, we're able to take their internal documentation and feed that into our algorithm, and then use the content on their website to make sure that the experience is really giving that kind of 99% accuracy every time. And that's resulted in, I was just speaking to them the other day, and they've seen something like a 42% reduction in their live chat need, because the bot's able to just take care of all of those sort of usual questions that people are asking. So big efficiency gains, but obviously the lead gen aspect is also very important.
Brilliant. Wes, take us back the 6 years then to, finishing up at university, the 1-year-old, 2-year-old in tow now, and getting started off and deciding, this is the route I'm going to take. Um, what was the start of the journey like for you? Straightforward, I'm sure.
Well, if that's a leading question, Steve, I don't know what is. But no, I mean, It's a funny one, when you're working in the corporate world, as anyone who has done in the past, it's a very safe environment to a degree. Yes, you can work long hours and there can be pressure, but you're still working within an organization, and you've got a job to do. And when you kind of take that transition into sort of working and building something from the ground up, it's a very scary prospect. It's you're basically, again, naively, I thought, when I leave this company and I start my own company, I can sell to my old employer and they'll trust me and they'll know me and I'll not have an issue. It just doesn't work like that. Ultimately we're a brand new business. We have no revenue. We've got a product that's not been tested. So taking that jump is a challenge, psychologically. I think there's a lot you can do to sort of mitigate that. So I'm always a big fan of, like, yes, I think you do need to take action, but I think it's also, if you are thinking about taking that jump into starting a business, it's just asking yourself those really tough questions, like, am I genuinely solving a problem? And is the problem I'm solving something that people will pay for? And that involves, research. It involves a lot of talking to customers. And there's a big difference between a customer saying they'll buy something and actually paying for something. But I think the more you can kind of do that and go through that kind of iterative process, because it isn't just it's not just a one-off process. It will slowly but surely get you to a point where there's demand, or if there isn't, and you know what you need to do to create demand, if it means pivoting, for example, a little bit. And then also establishing, what your customers will be willing to pay. And I think at that point, if you can sort of tick those boxes in your own mind psychologically and say, okay, if I do take the jump, I'm not just going to be floundering, then, then the difference is the people that do it and the people that just think about it.
Yeah. You've taken a really logical and methodical approach to that in terms of the questions that you've asked yourself are really difficult questions to answer at times. So with that process in place, it sounds like there should be a clear road path, but I'm pretty sure there'll be a couple of head in hand moments.
Oh, yeah, loads.
Yeah,
loads.
What was it? What's the one that stands out for you?
Oh, I mean, again, probably everyone said this, but the pandemic was just a nightmare. I mean, a lot of people think, oh, you're a technology business, chatbot business. Surely you would have been doing really well during that time. But the reality is we're ourselves still an SME. We're not a San Francisco, Silicon Valley VC funded tech company with tens of millions of dollars of funding at our disposal. So we don't have the budget to get that awareness out that maybe some of those companies that did experience big growth during the pandemic, like Zoom, for example, did. So we were really kind of struggling during that time, and it was a pretty stressful moment. Sort of thinking at one point it was just going to be a flu bug that would be over in a couple of months, to then realizing the whole country's going into lockdown, and how do we manage that? And we had to make some tough decisions. We had to furlough some of the team during that time, but we also made a decision, a conscious decision, to keep investing in our technology, because we did believe that the world has to keep moving, right? And for the sake of the economy, if nothing else. And we knew that at some point businesses would be getting back to business, and we wanted to be kind of ready with as advanced tech as possible to capture that. And I think that was the right decision on hindsight.
Such a good point. And there's a lot of businesses that either they found a way to differentiate the revenue stream, create multiple incomes, or they went the other way and just get really back to basics and just deliver a really good, solid product or service through that as well. So it's a lot of learnings come through that, and a lot of things that potentially you should be aware of, but maybe just forced into the situation to think about doing things differently a bit there as well.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's also about sort of seeing the opportunities that are out there. And I'm not saying by any stretch you should make an opportunity out of a crisis. And I had a LinkedIn post on Michelle Mone actually that went quite viral, which kind of gives a lot of my views on what happened during that time. But we were very fortunate on our side in that we picked up a project with NHS Scotland to help with a kind of chatbot style tech with the PPE equipment that was being delivered at the time. And it was a very low value deal for us, and I think we actually probably lost a bit of money on it, if I'm honest. But it was a good project to have, just to build that credibility in our business, to see we were involved in something that was quite advanced and also doing good out for people who were really struggling at the time, with getting PPE and things like that. So, yeah.
There's a couple of times just now, Wes, where you've mentioned credibility. Obviously, credibility coming through there, but credibility when you started out as well. When you don't have that social proof, that evidence behind you to say what a good job you can do.
Yeah.
So how did you go about building the credibility of Konversable?
I think it really comes through relationships. Ultimately, as much as we're a tech business, a lot of this is down to people. And we had some early adopter customers, who believed in us. Thankfully, we still have a lot of those customers today, been very patient with us through, the buggy periods of the system in the early days up to now. But it's, again, it comes back to the point about, listening to your customers, just talk to your customers all the time. And we constantly take that feedback on board, continue to improve it, do what we said we were going to do. So if a client is asking for something and we think it's worth doing, then we will do it. And slowly but surely just building up that base of kind of, I wouldn't say a fan base, it's maybe a bit extreme, but a loyal base that has your back in a sense, and then you can use that as a platform to then expand into other things. So our kind of approach is with our tech that kind of makes us a little bit different with other chat technologies, is that we really try to laser in on an industry and say, okay, what are the needs of that industry? So it might be lead gen, but it might be something else. It might be chatbots, but it might be WhatsApp. Maybe there's an integration requirement that's used by the industry. So we look at all of that, and we target an initial sort of client base. And then once we've got those clients, we use them as a kind of proof of concept, really, and almost sort of work with them to build out a solution that we know is working for them. And then we can sort of deploy that with other businesses in the industry as well. And that seems to have kind of worked quite well for us. And as I said, just builds that credibility on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, brilliant. We use a similar model, and it's how do you take somebody from a customer to, you mentioned a fan base, but it's that at the top of the ladder, it's that raving fan, somebody that's not, they won't just tell somebody about you, but they know everything and how you work. So it's taking them on that journey through being an advocate as well, and somebody that can speak on your behalf. Really cool.
Yeah. And I think the other thing is, sometimes the clients that you can acquire can just give you that credibility. We'll maybe got into this shortly in terms of our kind of roadmap into the future, but we were very much wanting to start moving into the enterprise space a lot more as well. And we've worked with a few great clients in that space already, but I think having those bigger, well-known brands behind you kind of really helps to bolster that credibility.
Yeah, absolutely. You mentioned as well, obviously, you're not based in San Francisco in Silicon Valley, but I think Glasgow's got a really good reputation as a as a hub for technology. And have you found the community there's been helpful in helping to move the business forward?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's an interesting one in Glasgow because Edinburgh was always sort of seen as the darling of Scottish tech for quite some time, and then over the years, Glasgow sort of gradually caught up. And I mean, it shouldn't really be a competition between East and West. I think Scotland's a small enough country where we're all sort of in it together, as it were. But it's been really interesting just to see how far Glasgow has come. We're very fortunate in that we've had very close links to University of Strathclyde since we got our first funding round, and they've been amazing with us, along with another private investor who is based out of Edinburgh. But over the years, we've really seen that ecosystem within Glasgow evolving. And I've been fortunate enough to be involved in a Foras trip. An organisation called Foras took us out to Lisbon with Web Summit, which was an amazing experience. We've been involved in the Tech Scaler program, and then other sort of various things that are going on. So if I look at kind of where Glasgow is now versus sort of 5 or 6 years ago, it really has evolved quite significantly, and I think it's continuing to do so. So it's quite a good time to be in tech in Glasgow.
Brilliant. And that evolution, obviously Konversable has evolved as well through that. So what does the team look like now from obviously the start with you and your business partner? Where are you at the moment?
Yeah, so we're still a relatively small team. We're a team of 6 now in Glasgow, and that's our kind of commercial operation, I guess you could say. So sales, operations, and customer success all kind of sit within that team. And then we have a development team who's based overseas. We've got six overseas developers as well. And the kind of longer term plan is really to continue to grow the UK team now. You know, we're actually probably going to be advertising for another role next week within the sort of sales side of the business. But yeah, it's we're again, one of the great things about the pandemic was the government Kickstart program, which was to try and get sort of younger people back into work who'd maybe been made redundant as a result of the pandemic. And, you know, I'm really lucky to say that we've had a few people come through that program who are still with us. And, you know, we've managed to sort of nurture those people from a fairly young age to where they are now, you know. So, yeah, so that's where we are now, and hoping to continue growing from there.
Excellent. And with that growth then, Wes, you've went from the founder, you know, that entrepreneur that you reluctantly connected with. But now, you, as you've just mentioned there, you're now having to lead people and take them on the journey with the business. So what changes have you seen in your own approach to the sort of the day-to-day, and what have you had to learn on that journey as well?
Yeah, I think I mean I sort of see myself as relatively fortunate in the sense that I used to run teams in my kind of corporate world, so I already had that kind of management / leadership experience to a degree then, and the team sizes were around about the same, you know, sort of 6 to 8 people. So that definitely stood me in good stead, you know, having that experience to lean on already. But obviously, when you're running a business versus working as part of a sort of middle manager in a business, it's very, very different. So there are a lot more pressures, obviously, from other stakeholders. But you know, I think ultimately, one of the benefits of that, you know, when you're a business owner, is you get to decide what your culture is going to be. And, you know, I've worked in companies in the past that have had good cultures and companies that have had bad cultures. And, you know, I think one that kind of jumps out for me is Honda. So I used to work for Honda car company, and they had a really strong culture of, you know, respect, respecting the individual was their kind of tagline. And then making sure everyone was sort of working towards that goal, very positive culture. And that these are things that I've sort of taken into our business, where, you know, we want to make sure that there's a positive culture where people feel valued. But I think the biggest thing for me is I want people to tell me the truth, sort of warts and all. So, you know, I think in big organizations, there's always a fear of, you know, if I say this, my boss going to start kicking off. I've been very clear with the team that I want absolute truth of, you know, is this feature not working right? Like, why is that, you know, oh, this bit's shit. Like, I want to know about that. Because otherwise we can't do anything about it, right? I don't want to hear what they want me to hear, kind of thing. So that's been really valuable, I think, in terms of how we kind of work as a team, and then how we're able to kind of constantly improve our platform and our proposition.
Coming from a really good sort of start point there with Honda, because as you say, it's a culture of respect. It's also a culture of, you know, driving efficiencies and testing and being able to improve on processes as well. So you've got a great understanding from coming from there to deliver it into there. But that point of culture is really important. You know, if you can get that right and create that environment where people can be honest with each other, where there's not the retribution. It's difficult to do, though. I think it's maybe it's maybe slightly more manageable when you bring the right people into the business and they've got direction.
Yeah, culture is it's an interesting one because it's one of those buzzwords that's flung around a lot, right? You know, culture this, culture that, and you know, I think ultimately for me, culture is about what are the things that you do in the business that demonstrate that culture, not the posters on your wall, you know. So, you know, when we brought some people in from many different backgrounds, and you know, there's one of the guys in particular who, you know, he's worked for kind of almost like a Wolf of Wall Street type company,
Sure.
and he's been through, you know, he's been through the ringer there, frankly. But he's come into a business like ours, and he's sort of realised that, you know, the world doesn't have to be like that. I'm not saying we're all like kind of giving each other hugs and, you know, doing all that stuff, but you know, but I think he sort of appreciated that actually there, you know, if you have the right positive culture, you can actually pass that through the rest of the team. And he's sort of stepped up now and is almost like my kind of second in command, in the sense that if I now go away on holiday, which I never used to do in the early days of the business, but if I go away now, like I did a couple of weeks ago, I know I've got a safe pair of hands who's aligned with my values, who understands what I need, and then just delivers that to the team. So it's just
Mm.
that trust element. But that comes through a lot of work. You know, it's not an overnight thing. It takes like that sort of daily discipline to kind of embed that culture into the business.
I can see the benefit internally for the business from having that those relationships and having that environment to work in. But have you seen kind of a halo effect in terms of how that impacts which clients you work with and bringing people to, start your own business development as well?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've always prided ourselves on our customer service. You know, and again, I guess it comes back to sort of my background to a degree where, you know, a lot of the jobs I did when I was very young were in customer facing environments, you know. So, you know, a shop assistant or worked at the Odeon for a while and that kind of stuff, you know.
Mm.
But having that at a young age, I think really sort of drilled into me the importance of good customer service and what that means. And then, you know, moving into companies like Honda, they're very, very customer first organizations. So it absolutely has, you know, I think, you know, if you've got unhappy employees, clients will sense that, you know, and if someone's on a sales call or they're, you know, maybe on a customer success call, you can tell almost immediately if that employee is actually genuinely passionate about what they're doing, or if they're just doing it to kind of tick a box, you know. So I think, you know, having that built into the culture is really important from a client perspective.
Great. You mentioned it again earlier, but we're starting to look further down the road now then, Wes, in terms of where Conversable's going. And again, you mentioned the rapid development of tech that supports in different businesses. But how do you see the next 5 years playing out for yourself?
Yeah, we've got some pretty aggressive growth plans. So at the moment, we are predominantly based in the UK. Most of our clients are based here. About 90% at least are based here, but we do have a couple of clients in the US now, one in Switzerland, and we have a couple of partners in the APAC region. So we know that there's international opportunity there. We're actually in the middle of another fundraise to get some investment to help us expand that part more quickly. So we'll predominantly be looking at that with strategic partnerships in those markets. So predominantly the US and maybe a bit into Europe. And then we're looking at moving more into that kind of enterprise space. So we've been lucky enough to work with some pretty big clients, you know, in the past, and that kind of enterprise field. So, and like some celebrity cruises, we've done some work for the BBC. Our most recent client is the charity Make a Wish. We're doing something really exciting there, and that's an area we want to sort of push further into, as well as hopefully growing our proposition to other industries. So at the moment we're very lucky in that our technology is industry agnostic, so we can sort of deploy that into any industry really. But you know, that comes with its sort of pros and cons, because we want to make sure that we sort of still fulfill our mission of providing those industry specific solutions. So at the moment, we're very heavily involved in dental, automotive, and recruitment. But we also have clients in hotel industry, for example, that are allowing us to maybe exploit that. So it's kind of growth across all parts of the business, really. And we have a sort of 5-year plan. And well, we're really sort of kicking it off from this month, actually. This month's our sort of new financial year. So quite exciting times.
Very good. And really ambitious plans, sort of world dominations in there. What are some of the challenges that you're predicting that are going to get in your way, or give you, something else to kind of work around?
I think it's always balancing resource with ambition. I mean, if we had sort of unlimited resources, we would say, right, we're going to open an office in Sydney and we're going to open an office in New York, and the fact is that's just not feasible based on the resources we have currently. So those are definite challenges. The technology challenge is a big one. The space, as I say, is moving so quickly. It's very hard to keep up with that. But we take a very there's a really good book actually called Blue Ocean Strategy, which kind of talks about this. But it's about sort of you can be operating in a very competitive market, but do something that's still unique within that market that allows you to kind of carve out your own niche. And that's something that we've been quite good at. So we are now trying not to look too much about what the competition's doing, but thinking, okay, what do business customers want, and what can we do that's different that will still provide value to those businesses? So I won't sort of share into detail what those are. Don't want to give all the secrets away, but those are the sorts of challenges. But it's obviously how you overcome those, which is the key. So.
Yeah, really, really cool. That's very ambitious. I like it, Wes, and good to get the team involved, driving that forward.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you then. Given the experience that you've had so far from, everything from start to now, if you were to go back to the start and I was to give you a check, the number here is, let's say, 5 million, and you get to do it again, what would you do differently?
Oh, that's a good question. So it's difficult. It's actually a really difficult question to answer. It's a good question. I mean, part of me is almost like I wouldn't change anything, because I think you only, and again, it's a total cliche, but you only do learn from your mistakes, and we have made a ton of mistakes along the way. And I think having not learned those, we would not be where we are. We've sort of, we've had, all sort of, any challenge you can think. We've had a lawsuit against us in the past. We've had cash flow issues in the past. We've had issues with staff, issues with the technology from time to time. So there's a whole host of things, but we've learned those along the way. So I think if we were to have had £5 million or £5,000, I think those mistakes would have still happened, frankly. But I think it's about how you deal with those. And you've only got to look at some of the big massively funded companies like Kazoo is a good example. Online car retailer raised over $300 million and are now in administration. A lot of mistakes made along the way, not necessarily directly related to how much money they had. So for me, it's I don't want to say I wouldn't change anything. I think if there probably was one thing, it would maybe be just holding off on launching the tech a little bit longer until we had some of those other bugs ironed out. Sure. But apart from that, I think probably wouldn't change too much. Just keep making those mistakes and learning from them.
Just make them a bit bigger.
Make them a bit bigger, exactly.
Very good, very good. So, Wes, I've really enjoyed this. And if anybody's listened to this and thought that's a technology or something that I can use to help to grow my business, how do they find you? How do they get in touch with you?
So you can just visit our website, konversable.com. So that's Konversable with a K. Or you can email us at hello@konversable.com. And you can probably find me on LinkedIn as well. So just look for Wes Beard and you'll find me there.
Brilliant. Wes, I really enjoyed this conversation. From your own point of view, what's sort of your own biggest takeaway from it?
I think I love doing these things because they really allow you to reflect. You get very little time to sort of reflect as a business owner when you're kind of running around like a headless chicken doing the day to day. So thanks to you, Stephen, for giving me the chance to kind of do that little bit of sort of lying on the psychiatrist chair and reflecting a little bit about the business. And definitely as you say, we're in a very interesting time now when it comes to technology and where that'll go. So it's been great to sort of chat about all that, and who knows what will happen next.
Yeah, I love your approach to having the right culture and environment in the business. And as you said, for some people that's a few nice words on a wall, but actually living those values means a lot to, I'm sure, to the team as well, and your clients that engage with you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, and that's something that as we grow the team, we'll want to keep that in place. It gets more difficult, I think, as you get bigger. But yeah, sure, we'll be fine.
Wes, thanks so much for your time today. Really enjoyed it, and all the best for the next 5 years and that world domination plan.
Thanks very much, Stephen. Nice to meet you too. Thanks again.
See you soon.